You mentioned there, Fran, expectation, and I think it's something that we've talked loads on the podcast about this, like different players, coaches, agents, whatever it is. It can be the killer for a lot of players if expectation rises too much. You know, the amount of times I know as a coach, I've coached a player, they've beaten a seed in the first round. This is on a micro level. And then the next day, their expectations are high. They're not quite feeling the ball the same. What are some of the strategies that you and your team use to manage that expectation?
Two things. I'd say, firstly, I don't struggle from the expectation around me because the expectation I put on myself is higher than anyone will ever put on me.
Okay.
So I think if there's one expectation I'm learning to try and manage, it's my own and the pressure that I put on myself, because like my perfectionist trait is a big part of who I am, and it can work to your advantage, but it can also work against you. So I think that's something I'm definitely trying to learn, continuously about.
Yep.
And I think the second thing is, at the end of the day, like I try and be humbled as I can. And I think when you're humbled, you respect every player on the other side of the net. I'm extremely competitive. So to me, whether it's a seed or not a seed, I want to win the match either way. So I think learning about what being humbled is, and how you use that to your advantage by always respecting everyone the same, whether they play tennis, they don't, whether they work what might be considered a standard job or work as the biggest banker in the city. Like, everyone deserves the same amount of respect, and so for me, that hasn't been something, especially in the last season, that I've struggled with too much.
And where do when I hear those values, I always relate them a little bit to the North. And I'm not saying that you have to be from the North to have those values, but I do think traditionally Northern families, I said this to you off air, when I heard your accent, I hadn't quite clicked, the full North with you, but it came through very loud and clear. And all of a sudden, like I said, I liked you a lot more. But where do those values come from? Is that something that you've always had? And I guess this is probably the point where we talk about you getting into tennis. When you started tennis, your family upbringing, where did all of that start, and what impact has that had on the person that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. It comes from the northern roots, I'd say. I mean, I grew up on a farm in middle nowhere, and my parents weren't farmers, but they bought this property, let's say. And I think when you grow up north, you don't see too much glamour, let's say, and so my whole family has worked very hard for what they've got, and my parents, I'm extremely fortunate. They do really well for themselves, but I think, irrespective of who they are now, what they've done to achieve their current let's say accomplishments, they've worked really hard, and they've given it everything, and always had that fighter mentality, always been greedy, always wanted more. And so I think it definitely originates from there, my that sort of view that I have on things. But I'd say, when you also travel so much with tennis, and you go to countries like the South American countries where I spent a lot of time, and you see these kids who kind of come up to you, and they've barely got a racket, but they're so excited to be on a tennis court, and they can barely afford to have breakfast, lunch and dinner, yet they've still got a smile on their faces. And I've always enjoyed going to South America because of that. They face adversity on a daily basis. People, they might wake up to death on the front doorstep, and it's the norm for them, but yet somehow they learn to view life with a smile. And I think tennis players, hopefully, and and will in the future really appreciate the fact that, you know, we do get to travel to the ends of the earth, and not only is it from my upbringing, but also the observations I've made since traveling, especially of course on the ITF tour. You really should see what's around you and open your eyes.
And that's so much bigger than what anybody achieves on the tennis court as well. You know, and that ability, I think, for all of us that are lucky to be in this sport, that certainly if we're fortunate enough to travel and see the world, there is no better education, you know, and it's something I think is often not talked enough about. One of the real qualities of getting into the sport. I think a lot of people go along this journey and it's like, I'm investing all this money and we're investing all this time, and if I don't make money as a tennis player, then it's been a waste of the investment. Whereas I couldn't think anything more different than that. And to hear you say those things, and I can see your face that they genuinely, you know, mean something to you, and you have that picture of that little kid, you know, and those things are so highly motivating. Share one story that's had the biggest impact on you from traveling.
Oh wow. Okay, I'd say I played 2 15Ks when I was I'd like to say 2018, but don't quote me on that. But I did win one of them, so it'll be somewhere on my profile, I'm sure. But I went to a village called Villa Maria, so it's in Argentina, and I couldn't quite believe where I found myself. And we got to the airport, which was 3 hours away, and this taxi driver, we'd organised a taxi driver to pick us up. And of course, in Argentina, you know, a 3-hour taxi is the equivalent of a 10-minute taxi in London. And this man picked us up, and you know, when you go to these places, I'm fortunate enough that I speak Spanish, but if I didn't, I'd be even more tentative around these people. And he's picking us up, and I'm thinking, you know, I really don't know who this guy is, but he has quite a humbled look about him, a very welcoming face, and seemed really excited that, you know, these two foreigners were going to be in his village. And so, anyway, he drives us to the hotel, and I was like, look, how much do I owe you? Fair amount. I paid him for the trip, and then, you know, he says, well, when are you playing? And I was like, oh, you know, maybe Tuesday. I got there about 4 days before. Well, you're not going to go to the club before, he says. And I said, well, yeah, we'll go every day to train, and then when I play my match, I'll play my match. He's like, all right, okay, well, just message me when you're going to be playing, and I'll take you to training, and I'll take you to the match. So I messaged him. I thought, okay, let's give it a try. I wanted to have faith in the person. I didn't want to judge him. Like, all right, 9 a.m. he takes me to the club. He's like, so when do you finish practice? In about an hour and a half. Okay, I'll take you back. So finished my practice at about 11, and he's there to pick me up, takes me back to the hotel. And I was like, okay, we're going back this evening, so hopefully we'll see you around. He's like, okay, what time are you picking up? Same thing happens every single day. I won the tournament, so we got to the final, and on the day of the final, he was there 5 minutes before we'd agreed, took me. So when I finished the final, he says, I'm so happy for you, like it's been a pleasure. And I said, okay, well, you know, how much do I owe you for all the trips? And we're talking about 10-minute trips there and back. And he goes, owe me? It's my pleasure. You don't owe me anything. And so at this point, I'm thinking, hold on, I feel a bit uncomfortable here. Like I should pay him for these trips, and I'm not sure if I'm being too trusting here, and something might happen later where he's like, I don't want a penny off you. So I said, okay, well, let me take you and your family out to dinner, because that's the least I can do. I've won the tournament. You know, I want to take you to a nice dinner. We'd found this one restaurant based on a vineyard that was phenomenal, and I took them there, and we finished, and he said, that's the best meal of my life. And it was him, his 2 daughters, and his mum. Unfortunately, his wife had passed away from cancer, and to this day, we're talking about 3 years now, I message him, or he messages me once a quarter to check in.
Wow.
And yeah, I think the relationship, I mean, I have goosebumps now, but if one day there's something I could do to move his family to a better place, I will, for sure.
over the 142 episodes, there's been a few goosebump moments, and you've just given me another one.
Oh,
You know,
I've got to.
what a lovely, lovely story.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, just English, but I can certainly translate for him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What an amazing story. Thanks for sharing.